Oh, what a way to start with a bunch of people laughing. So, hey, folks, welcome to another episode of the Security Table. It's probably not a surprise. We're actually having fun before we hit record. Then we hit record and we continue having fun. We're recording this on Friday, November 10th, which is Veterans Day observed here in the United States. And so we just want to say thank you to all of the veterans out there. We know we have a lot of folks in our community that are veterans. We appreciate you. We thank you for your service, and just wanted to recognize you right off from the start here. And so we're going to talk about a lot of different things today, like we always do. Like, I wish we had one topic, but that's not really what the table is about. The table is about having a conversation about security things, and sometimes other things pop in. But we do have a special guest here. Aditi has joined us. And so, Aditi, if you could just give our audience just a high-level background on you, like what's been your cybersecurity background story, experience, kind of what's your perspective, where you're coming from? That'd really be great for us to hear.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Chris, for having me here today. I love all your podcasts, first of all. So just about me, I had an happy accident of getting into security almost 5 years back when I was working for a customer, for some online application. My background is mostly around, product management and business analysis, data analysis. So I started my journey from automotive, telecommunications, and now I'm into security. So just a happy accident working through different software solutions, and now just leading some new software solutions into security.
Okay, so kind of your current focus then is on AppSec, product security, integrating security into basically into software. Then that's kind of your primary focus now.
My primary focus is mostly around best practices and product security, compliance,
very cool,
attestations, and all of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. That helps the audience just to have a little bit of a frame of reference of where you're coming from. And, when you start yelling at Izar like everybody else is going to do, they'll at least know why. They'll have some idea as to why, but we don't really yell at Izar. No, this is a fun space, maybe a little bit. So we're going to go some different directions, but I put this picture on LinkedIn that I want to start with because I found this thing in the new SBOM consumption guide that just came out. And it was an SBOM Lifecycle picture, and we'll put the link to the post in the show notes just so you can see what it was. But the challenging thing about it is I found it didn't have any place where vulnerabilities are being fixed. And so I'll just describe the picture since I don't have a view of it up. It's SBOM delivery. It's the document's called Securing the Software Supply Chain, Recommending Practices for Software Bill of Materials Consumption. It has a life cycle figure 2, SBOM delivery, acceptance and validation, ingestion and parsing, extraction, transformation and loading, and mapping and asset management. And I sat here and I said, I consider myself to be mildly intelligent. Okay? Mildly intelligent. Where do we fix the problems in this life cycle? And then it kind of hit me like, this has been the thing I've been railing against for the whole time I've been on my soapbox about SBOM, the fact that there is no focus on actually fixing anything. And so I bring that to the security table. I throw the virtual piece of paper down, and I can tell there's already people are already getting, I can see it in everybody's eyes. They're already ready to let me have it. So Matt, you were shaking your head first. So what are your thoughts on my conclusion here?
Well, I think your conclusion is good in that there isn't a focus on it, and maybe that's the missing part, right? Is the focus on what SBOM is for, and we really should let Aditi give the definition of what SBOM is, because that's her area of expertise here. But not having a focus on the outcome of why an SBOM exists is it's unfortunate. I'll just start with that. But before we dive into that, actually, so Aditi, can you sort of give us in your own words? We love to work with definitions here. We start out with definitions. That way we level set for our audience. Can you help our audience understand what an SBOM is?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So SBOM, aka Software Bill of Materials, is basically the inventory of your product. And the inventory of this product can have, open source software, any commercial dependencies that you're using, and even the proprietary information that you're coding in house. So an SBOM is basically you have heard the analogy with the food ingredients list that goes behind any whatever food item you're buying. The analogy goes with that a lot in the industry today. But it's basically just the inventory of what your product is made of, and it can have a level of depth to it. It could be just the top level. You could go beyond it, second level, third level. Depends what level of vulnerability management you want for your organization, because ultimately the main use of SBOM is for vulnerability management. So
okay,
that's the short definition of it, Matt.
So in that, correct me if I'm wrong here, but in that the SBOM gives a set of things with potentially with vulnerabilities. That's not the end of it, right? That's not the end goal, right? It's not just a list.
No.
Correct?
No.
So to Chris's point.
No. So
yeah, go ahead.
You can use it's about having that information and then how you use that information. Having that information is really important, so that first of all, you know what you're consuming, because as you're increasing the size of your organizations, the asset management piece comes into picture. And for that, you need to have your basic infrastructure ready. So once that is all set, as you have vulnerabilities coming in, as you want to know where am I impacted, it's easier to find your way into that system. So think of having to find an issue into, like, for example, the peanuts allergy. Unless and until you won't know there is peanuts in your in your food, how would you know? So you just got to know what's in your software. So it's just about that. I always feel like it's a driver for something more. It's a static document that is created for every release, but how you actually make use of it will actually serve its purpose internally or for your customers.
So I'm tracking with you so far. I'm tracking. Go ahead, Izar.
But if it's a static document, and we live in an era that I think that I can safely say most of what people use every day is SaaS. And I don't see the significance of that static document for SaaS users.
So I just want to confirm. You said SaaS, software as a service, not SaaS. Right. SaaS, software as a service.
Yeah. That's the other one. No, not even by mistake. That's. But no. So So what I'm trying to understand here is first the usability of the thing for the public at large. So are we? Here's where my biggest fear lies at this point. Are we creating yet another industry that we are going to feed? And that's going to be 1,000 different startups. And that's going to be 1,000 different standards. And it's going to be 1,000 different solutions. And we still can't look at it and say, oh, this is what I do. I mean, I recognize that it's good to know if there are peanuts in the salad. That's awesome. But where the analogy breaks for me is it's not even that there's a lot of people who are allergic to it. There's a lot of people who are not even eating it, who are not consuming it.
Well, if you keep pulling on the thread of that analogy, right, where it breaks down when you bring it to a software context is I look at a list of ingredients. I see there's peanuts in it. I'm allergic to it. I throw the salad away. I'm done. That's the end of that's the end of the transaction, though, right? Like, and my whole point here with this, and I started to go the same direction, Izar, you did. When we think about software as a service, you can't just shut it down because you got a bad SBOM result coming in from. So you have a vendor. Let's just go ahead.
But if you're in a position that you are a SaaS user, you're not even going to fix that thing. So you just got a piece of information that's absolutely not useful for you. And I don't remember if we are going into it today or not, but now you have Vex that can explain to you, hey, why it's not so bad. So that has more of a usefulness to me than the SBOM itself. Well, so now as part of that ecosystem, we are creating other documents that help clarify that ecosystem.
So before we get into Vex, let me ask Aditi.
And that could be true.
Oh. Go ahead, Aditi.
Yeah.
We run over each other.
No, go ahead, Matt. No, go ahead.
No, I'm the only one that speaks over people here. Yeah.
So Izar called out having an SBOM for a SaaS service and how there's no action for the user. If they look at the SBOM for a SaaS service, they're like, you got peanuts in there. And that they can't do anything because either they throw away they either stop using the SaaS service or they wait for the vendor to take action. There's nothing they can do. So first off, is SBOM even a valid option for providers of SaaS services, or does SBOM really come into its own when we're talking about on-prem products, packaged software, things that get delivered to customers, where the customers would then have actions that they could take based on what they see, in that they could throw away the salad, so to speak, or they could pick out the peanuts.
Yeah, if you look at the executive order that came in, it also focuses mostly on premise. It focuses on products more than applications. It focuses more on actions which a customer can take in their own environment for if there is an action that has to be taken, if a patch has to be deployed and whatnot. But SaaS, I feel like it's maturing. That space is maturing. And what is not applicable in a SaaS environment, it's not. Not everyone has to consume it. It has to work for your business. I really see SBOM, yes, it is a compliance and all of that, but what is right for your business? What is right for your product? And a lot of companies have applications who are products. Right. For example, there are so many CRM products which are literally applications, but they are a product for a company. So how do they want to manage their internal vulnerability management? By understanding the software they're consuming. So this is more around where do you want to take your own security posture? How do you want to track everything within your systems? So
that's what I learned.
If you want to make use of it, you should.
On the topic of SBOM and understanding kind of the usability behind it, I had a chance to catch up with Steve Springett via LinkedIn thread. I'd been trying to get his opinion on this as far as the usability of SBOMs in the context we're talking about, where you're receiving SBOMs from an outside source and then trying to gain value from it. And he admitted as well that the sharing nature of or value from sharing those things is limited at this point. So that was kind of, I guess, some of the conclusions I was hoping to get to is, but I did want to go in another direction here because we did talk about SaaS, but let's reframe this in the context of just a physical product. Okay, because I think you have the same problem in a physical product that we describe in the SaaS, but I want to bounce this off the table. So imagine that we have a product that I've purchased. I'm the consumer. I'm the customer, and I'm getting an SBOM set of SBOMs sent to me via this lifecycle we're talking about. I have the same problem though if there's a big issue that the SBOM identifies, because like I can't. If I bought a network device, I can't just turn the device off.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I have better visibility from a risk management perspective, but I can't really do anything. I'm still at the mercy of the vendor. And so, does that change does the game change in the two scenarios we've been working from, a product versus a SaaS solution?
So it depends if you are on the customer side or you're on the vendor side. So your actions would depend on if you are a customer, you can go to that you can go to that vendor who is providing you that solution, right? That okay, we have identified this issue. What are you doing at your end to get it fixed?
Okay.
But if I am the consumer, or vice versa, it's just about knowing what is the issue and then where you go about it. Maybe it's an internal issue, because that way you can even find out if something going on internally is wrong. And if you want to talk internally with your product teams and all those business units, you just take an action accordingly. So really depends on the perspective of which side of the chair you're sitting. That's just my take.
So if I could, so that what this sounds like then is, to Chris, to where you're going with this, is if we talk about packaged software, a product, whatever, where the vendor doesn't give capability to the customers to apply their own patches from upstream. So let's just say for a moment we're talking about software that embeds Java, Log4j, for example, right? And because everyone loves the beat on Log4j, there's no other components that exist that have vulnerabilities. Never, ever all. So if you have a system that has Log4j, but you don't give the ability for the customer to go and apply a Log4j patch as soon as it's available, then really the SBOM is telling you, oh, there's a component in here, it's called Log4j, and oh, by the way, you can go look at its vulnerabilities. You don't know if the vulnerability actually impacts the product at that point using just the SBOM. But you can then say, well, maybe this becomes more risky. I want to take it out of my DMZ and I want to put it more into a closed network, or I want to change its network properties. I can apply mitigations to it.
I need clarification on something you said, because I may not understand how the world works. And that could be part of the problem here.
Do we ever understand how the world works?
You described a scenario where I can buy a product, but yet I can patch library versions of that product itself. I can patch the library myself, even though it's a packaged piece of software I bought from somebody else. Is that a thing that I just don't know about in the world?
I don't think it's common. Certainly, I don't think that's a common thing. I'm thinking about, so certainly if you buy Linux or acquire a Linux version from somewhere, you could potentially patch that, right?
Sure, of course.
Say you buy a Chromebook, right? That Chromebook has applications that come with it. You can independently update those things potentially yourself. You could sideload if you want, right? Android does, or Chrome, provide those options. You could potentially apply patches from an upstream provider yourself. There's a host of things you could do. I don't think it's common. So I wasn't describing sort of a common thing that, if a product is based on Linux, that you get direct access to a shell to be able to, and access to the repositories to be able to add components or modify components yourself. Although I imagine that does exist.
Yeah, because I think of products in the closed category, meaning I get a metal box. It has a piece of software and that includes software firmware and everything, but I don't have an interface to even really profile what software's there. I definitely don't have the ability to update the software because I started thinking about the QA challenges that exist there. If I update, we know what happens and that's one of the big challenges in supply chain, right? I update a package and it breaks 27 other features that we don't even know why it's breaking. Doesn't make any sense that thing over there is breaking, but we updated the package. Apparently there's a dependency to it. and some new version broke the API, broke the library calls, and now that thing doesn't work either. So,
right.
For
So
a brief glimpse, though, Matt, I thought you had solved my problem. I was like, maybe there's something I just didn't understand, but I don't think so.
Not as far as I know. So really what you're looking at is you look at the SBOM and you go, oh, this has a component. This component has a vulnerability. The vendor hasn't supplied me with the ability to update that yet, and I can't do it myself. So I really have to take have to put in compensation controls or mitigating techniques to reduce the impact of that vulnerability. And that's the benefit of SBOM is really visibility so that you can make proper risk management. Not perfect, certainly, but it's a start. I think that
you're onto
there's a value there.
You're onto something here that I was missing. The SBOM as a driver for other compensating controls that may allow me to get visibility to, whereas in the past, I might not have as much context. I might know that there's a giant OpenSSL vulnerability about to hit, but I don't have the context to know where I need the compensating control to go. Right? Well, I might be having a breakthrough here. He's going to crash it for me.
No, it's okay. It's like this. So you had Steve in your thread saying that yes, something is still missing, and it was something pretty basic, right? On the other hand, I have had the pleasure of speaking with Steve in other occasions and learning from him, and understanding that the SBOM universe is being expanded to cover all kinds of things that we didn't think some even thought about a threat modeling SBOM and reachability SBOM and observability SBOM and this and that and the other. And I keep going to thinking, we haven't figured out yet even the basic, how to consume this thing. And we are already talking about the new generation, next version, Warp Core, going ahead, beam up Scotty, and
where's my sign? HBOM is a thing, right?
Right. So, just bring me back to the basics, just give me some value the hype for me right now. I mean, I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. And I think that you guys agree with me. We see huge value in this thing, but so far it is future value. It hasn't been realized yet. And there's this huge momentum behind building this thing. Yeah, let's get all the ducks in a row. Then let's know what the version of the ducks are and what color the ducks are and where the ducks are coming from. Now just put them in a pond and forget them because I don't know what to do with the ducks.
All right, so Aditi, you've been listening for a while here now. Like, what's your take on this as far as this mini breakthrough I may have just had, plus Izar's pinpointing the fact that we do think SBOM is good, but it is a future value challenge.
So, I have seen in so many, in my past 5 years journey of security, you will not get a benefit of security immediately. You will get the benefit of some security related actions when the time comes. So since we brought Log4j, say you identify there's a Log4j vulnerability and you have to find out what all assets in my company are affected. What are you going to do about it? You will just go to it. So I always say SBOM is like the final name, but in the back of it, the engine is all your inventory management, whatever tools you're using, right? You just go back there and then you can do a simple search. Okay, what are my key products which are impacted? So first of all, it's a way to find the impact area. Second of all, when you connect the information with the CVEs which are available, then you can have a proper dashboard in front of you where these are the components, these are the vulnerabilities, what is my status? So it's alone, it will help you do your asset management. Together, combined with CVE, you can do vulnerability management. So it's a couple of processes. It's not that straightforward. How people say it's a push of a button. It takes a lot of work behind the scenes to actually get that quality SBOM, quality inventory in place. Because it's not going to happen day one. It's a process, and a lot of it's it's manual, then you go to automation, and so it's not that straightforward, but its value is only when you try to see what is working in your ecosystem. How can you make use of it?
So I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. Sorry. I totally get what you're saying, Aditi, and don't see this as a personal thing. It's just me being me.
I'm not. Yeah.
Once you have an SBOM, and you have a CV, and you know the package is impacted, it's going to take like what? A 5-line bash script to grab through your SBOMs and figure out where the CV lives. And instead, we have this huge industry shaping up. And I think that we all have been brought up and educated on the notions of small increments and showing the use as those increments go. And I go back to, okay, I get the use, I get the solution. We have a way to do the SBOMs, we have a way to consume it. But there are huge increments happening in this industry, and I'm not seeing those small leaps in usefulness. I'm just seeing, yeah, we got that case. We know how to read, how to grab SBOMs for things that have Log4j in them.
Yeah,
Where is the future?
Also think, so from government perspective, what I think, and this is just my personal opinion, whenever solar, I think it was solar attacks when, after eventually then Log4j and SolarWinds, and then Log4j, and then eventually this came out. How I see it is sometimes they want to know what open source you're using. Where is it coming from? Which country is it coming from? So in the grand view, it's not just about vulnerability, but also where is that software coming from? So that if you look at the executive order, what they're saying is, hey, we will do the purchase from you only if you let us know what is in the product that you are selling us. So it's a national security issue at that point of time for them. So that's their business, right? That's what I'm saying. What works for you as a business, because that's what is working for them. And then to just make it work for everyone. Also, there are so many tooling companies now coming up. It's also helping it as a business for them. So all the sound, because everyone wants to innovate in this field, everyone wants to be ahead of each other. So now it's a competition somewhere.
Here's my I got a business idea though. This could be the solution, Izar, to what you just described as the problem. It's going to require AI though. Okay.
Oh God.
Why?
No. Stay with me here.
AI
I think I can wrap blockchain into this too. Hold on. Okay. AI, blockchain, and SBOM together. Okay.
Only if you dashed it at the end.
I'm not doing that. I refuse to do that. I will not add that into this. Okay. So follow me here. Okay. We've got SBOMs. I, as a customer, am saying I want SBOMs. Okay. For the piece of software that I'm buying. Between what this new solution from this vendor provides is I enter into a smart contract using blockchain between myself as the customer and the vendor that says what the terms of fix are going to be. And then they use my AI agent to actually patch the vulnerabilities according to the smart contract that we've agreed upon with timelines and deadlines for when things have to be patched. So, well, I mean, I think we got a business idea here. Let's start a company. Let me call my legal team and see if we can get a company.
Yeah, let's call it Not Your Business Inc.
Why does it need AI?
Because you can't patch fast enough, right? You're not going to be, that's the challenge, right? Is like vendors always can't patch fast enough to keep up with whatever the accepted contract. So like if you could give me a patch and a patched version an hour after the SBOM hit that showed I had the issue, of course, then I probably don't need the SBOM anymore.
I feel like I am in a beehive for the amount of buzz around here.
You're more.
Blockchain in. I did the blockchain just to make it more
listen. The blockchain I can even somehow accept, not the way that you put it, right? But you know what? I think that we all agree that SBOMs need some kind of verification. And nowadays, I understand. Nowadays, a couple of months ago, when we last checked, I think that people weren't even having to sign SBOMs. But I could see some blockchain thing going in there to, validate and see that there were no changes to the SBOM and this and that and the other one.
But
and
the SBOM's on the blockchain. That's another business idea. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
No, SBOM on the blockchain. Yes.
Somebody mute him.
The AI I'm going to throw out of the window happily.
Please.
But again, it comes down to what problem are we trying to fix? And Aditi, for example, you mentioned provenance, okay, for verifying ITAR, for example. Again, it comes back to a point where I can write on SBOM whatever I want. The fact that I have an SBOM doesn't say that actually reflects what's out there. In there. I mean, we even had people telling us that manually created SBOMs are better than automatically generated ones. So, yeah, I went there. So,
that's a good point, though. You can't validate the SBOM. There's nothing that validates it on my side.
Yeah,
but my point is, I can't run an SBOM checker against a running product to generate an SBOM and compare it with what you told me. I'm fully trusting you.
There's no third-party lab that's going to run a separate test that's going to tell me that the SBOM that I got from the vendor is actually the SBOM of the product that I'm using.
That's a whole other. I'm gonna have to
now
think of another technology.
You can put blockchain in there. I think somebody calls Zoe.
So I would be careful. I would be careful with that statement.
I got to work digital transformation in here real quick. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my God. I would be very careful with that blanket statement of I can't verify an SBOM. The components that show up in an SBOM, remember, there's a hierarchy, right? So if my system contains 2 top-level things and each of those things contain 4 other things, those components may be present in multiple ways, right? They may be present as code that's compiled in, either snippets or whole modules, or they could be independent things on disk, right? And so in theory, you could potentially validate the entire SBOM if you had detection capabilities. Of course, if you could do that, you don't really need the SBOM in the first place.
What's the cost of doing that?
Except for to prove that the system that you bought wasn't modified. In other words, no new functionality was added or functionality was removed inappropriately.
Yeah, but at least sign the whole image.
That's one signature away.
That's one signature.
Just crypto sign the components in check. You don't need an SBOM for that.
You don't need an SBOM for that, except for you do need to know that you have to know that if you rely on signatures alone, right? We know that digital signing certificates get compromised, right? Either they get issued inappropriately or they get stolen. And so it provides a level of assurance, an additional check that you can do.
But SBOMs are not even signed. What am I comparing with?
Well, what do you mean they're not
before
signed?
I publish the SBOM, I do VI SBOM and I change the versions to whatever I want.
Yeah, that's
now you're telling me that on the recipient side, they have to have the ability of rebuilding the SBOM just for the sake of comparing with what they got from the vendor.
This is why we need the blockchain,
what did I get?
people.
I'm going to block that chain right now.
You're going to add that to the list of things I'm not allowed to say. But Aditi, we're all over the place here. But any thought? Be the voice of reason here. We've needed a voice of reason for a long time on this show. Can you bring a voice of reason to any of the things that we've just been tossing all over the place here?
So I'm trying to think.
I tried that all the time. Nothing happens.
I think that I'm getting that effect, Izar. But I think with SBOMs, what's happening is there's a way now. Suddenly, there's a eureka. Oh my gosh, you have your SBOM, I have my SBOM, and now everyone can know what's in there, and let's be transparent and all that. But that's not practical, right? Because Um, Literally, SBOM is a secret sauce of your product somewhere, right? Because how your product is created is you have everything in there. Yes, and not, you're not sharing the exact code, but you have all the components, all the recipe ingredients over there. So there are trade secrets. You may not, there's also an impact on your own vulnerability response teams, if you think about it. Because if you start having a blockchain and having, everyone's information into yours, and then the customer is going to be confused. Where do I go? So it has to be a step-by-step process. And Izar, I cannot change your view whether SBOM is useful or not.
Oh, you can. Totally. I'm open.
At the end of the day, you have to see what is your risk posture and how you're managing your vulnerabilities. Do you care about what components your developers are, using? What open source your developers are using in your product? Because if you don't know that, if you don't have a manifest in place, if you don't have a filter somewhere, because this is eventually helping in so many things, right? This whole process. It's also helping you be more cautious of what you want to have in your product. More cautious of taking steps of letting everyone know, hey, you cannot just use anything that you like. You have to have, you have to abide by the manifest approved within your company or whatever it is. So SBOM is kind of a driver in engaging these further discussions. I just feel like it's a driver, it's an enabler, and then rest is on you how you want to use that information.
I'm confused though, Aditi. I'm confused, Aditi, by the use case that you're highlighting. So I've always been under the impression that an SBOM is primarily used to communicate information from supplier to consumer. But I think what you're highlighting here is that an SBOM may be used supplier with internally to the supplier as well.
Absolutely. So say I have close partners, right? And I work on, vulnerability response for all these things with them. There can be a code of action where you also share SBOMs between each other, right? Just to understand, just to have that view of what are the components, what could happen next. It's about having that relation with the suppliers as well internally. Not everyone has to share everything outside, but for your internal, for your own product, what all you are consuming, you have to keep an eye on what you're consuming, because you have like 10 vendors within your product as well.
So now you touched on something that I can totally stand behind. And the analogy is another industry that I think that we constantly reach out to learn from, which is aviation. And if you ever look at the analysis of an aviation accident, they are able to know every single screw in that plane, where it came from and when, which batch, which lot, whatever, right? Yeah. But then it falls back into the maturity of the SBOM universe today, and the way that I won't say criticizing, but questioning it, is that we are moving very fast in this direction of SBOM all the things, while we lack the foundation work that would give me the ability to trust an SBOM to reflect every single screw that goes into my software. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I totally get the internal side that you put out. The external side, to me, it's starting to rub me the wrong way, because we are saying, oh, whomever gets that product and gets that SBOM, they have to now rebuild the SBOM so that it compare with the SBOM that was given to them firsthand. And I'm feeling like hard. Everybody... I'm thinking everybody's talking about the shift left thing, and there couldn't be anything more shift right than this.
I wasn't suggesting we should be validating
no more shift left, please. By the way,
Izar,
I'm fainting left.
I think you confused my statement with you can versus you should, right? You could.
Possibility.
If your SBOM is signed, you can prove integrity and authenticity.
If it's signed.
If it's signed, right? But if it's not signed, or if you want to do an independent validation for whatever reason, it is probably possible for some percentage of those components. I'm not saying that
And
you will have
signed,
to, but you could.
I just want to piggyback on that. If it's signed, it's the same thing as a contract at that point. Like if somebody did, like if somebody was to create an SBOM and maliciously change it on purpose, there'd be a liability case for me as a customer. I could sue whoever gave me that software if they modified it. If there was some material breach or something that occurred on I lost money as a result of that breach, and turns out they lied to me. That's where everybody's afraid SBOM could go, though, is the liability side, because that we know how long it takes liability to work out. The courts to decide some cases, try them, get a body of record, so we know what the answer is going to be.
We're making the assumption that the SBOM is complete in addition to being accurate, and that's where the liability comes in.
Then you can always get told you could have checked it by yourself because you have the software.
The malicious case, I'm trying to work around the malicious case where somebody just, like you said, they open VI and they just change the version numbers. That's fraud, right? Like we have rules and laws and whatnot in the United States that define what fraud is, and that would be a pretty clear-cut case of fraud if you gave me that SBOM and we had a contractual requirement for you to provide SBOMs and you just blatantly changed it and gave me something different. I think that would be an easier thing to get around.
I don't see it that way. So yes, there could be repercussions, but this SBOM is maturing, and you're not going to get it right the day one. And that's where, the legal helps, right? In having all those, this is what we know at the best at this time. And it can change. As I said, there is a level of depth to SBOM. It can, for some products, Log4j was a level 6th or 8th. Like you cannot even find it with your basic top level dependencies. So, and that can happen with, I don't know. But that's a good point that you raise. Yeah.
All right. We were going to talk about Vex, but I'm vexed by the fact that we don't have enough time to talk about Vex. So we'll have to have another conversation about Vex because we're just at about our time.
You anti-Vexer.
I'm an anti-Vexer. Actually, I'm not. I don't even like I said at the beginning, I don't even really understand Vex yet. And so I do need to definitely learn about that. But let's do let's close it out. Let's kind of let's do some final statement / thoughts, but not an argument, because that will then turn around another iteration of minutes of recording time. But Matt, go ahead and go first. What's your give us something to take away from this conversation.
All right. So we started this episode with you posted something on LinkedIn and caused a kerfuffle around SBOM. And I think your original premise was accurate, that the flow that was described in the white paper, in the guidance document, recommended practices for SBOM consumption, missed a key point by not explicitly calling out, oh, by the way, use this for understanding, patching and whatnot. But I think I will also extend that to general risk management and configuration management practices, using the knowledge in the SBOM to understand that you need to patch and or thinking about, now I need to provide mitigations and potentially change my network architecture or other mitigating techniques. That's the true outcome that you get from SBOM, in my opinion.
And that was a lesson learned for me. Like that's something y'all taught me on this episode. So Aditi, why don't you go ahead and give us a final thought next?
Well, if you want to just keep an eye on, what your product has, what you're consuming, open source, commercial, anything, and in turn use the APIs available for having, all the CVEs that are there out there. And if you want to compare, do you have any components which are affected with the database that is available publicly? You can actually see where you are standing in your security posture. So give it a try.
Okay, thank you. Izar, what about you?
SBOM will be great. SBOM is becoming great. today, SBOM is not great. We are putting a lot of mass behind this, and it's building a lot of momentum. And I think that it's going to become something that's very central to the whole industry. But right now, the value proposition is there, the value realization is not.
Wow. And because I'm kind of the impromptu host of this show, I don't have to follow my own rules. And so I'm not going to give you a takeaway. Thanks for joining us on the Security Table, folks. And we look forward to having another conversation with Aditi in the future to learn about Vex. Aditi, thanks for joining us on your first ever podcast appearance.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. No, this was great. Thank you so much for having me.